I will go and pass to the second speaker. Is Aifen there? Oh, when you are. Yeah, it could be some kind of.
Did I got disconnected?
Yes, I think the intelligence service. You know, those puppets behind you, they have cameras in their eyes. You don't know it. So, yeah, so she's gone. I think they cut the connection. So let's go to the next speaker. But before we do that, thanks a lot, Wenyuan, for participating, and we give you a big clap. We can send you the audio that you see that we really clapped. The next speaker is Dr. Aifen Sui from Huawei. I just give a very short introduction of her. She completed her PhD, I think around, according to her bio, 2003. But then she started to work in industrial research. She has been working for Siemens. She has been working for Huawei, and currently she is with Huawei. And she's going to talk about automotive systems, which actually connects very nicely and smoothly to Wenyuan's talk, because she's attacking all the algorithms that are used in automotive industry. And we are very happy that Aifen Sui accepted our invitation. We know that she's busy. I think she's also playing piano, or not, or okay. So it's just a picture of the piano. Anyway, thanks a lot for accepting my invitation, and the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Sagilo. Yeah. It's my great honor to be here and talk about automotive security. So today I'd like to talk about the new architecture, automotive architecture, service-oriented architecture, about the security challenges and countermeasures. Firstly, I will introduce how this architecture involves to service-oriented architecture. Actually, it's a hybrid of original and service-oriented architecture. So firstly, I'd like to talk about the innovation strategy of OEMs. So now CASE, connectivity, autonomous driving, shared and services, and electric are actually the common innovation strategy for OEMs. So Daimler released this case, and especially shared and services are treated at their core business. And BMW also released this strategy and add D as design to this case. And we can actually feel some trends in our daily life, such as connectivity. Nowadays, our cars not only, for example, connected to cloud, and in the future, they can also connect to other vehicles and also roadside units. And the connectivity also related to the internal connections between the modulars inside the vehicle. And for autonomous driving, there are different levels, but now they're approaching more to autonomous driving. And of course, there are lots of challenges. The shared and services, and this is the focus of my talk. And then electric, or electrified. Actually, electric vehicle, I mean the electric vehicle actually affect the architecture a lot. It's not only about the power of the vehicle, but also affect the whole architecture. And so the right side is a hypercycle of for connected vehicles and smart mobility by Gartner. So the four directions or strategies also shown on the technical trends. For example, connected car platforms and autonomous vehicle perception system, in-vehicle services, and also electric vehicles. So this is the industry trend, and all of the trends need new functionalities and features to the vehicles. Actually, the introduction of features and functionalities push the evolution or drives the evolution of EE architecture in the vehicle. EE architecture means electrical and electrics in the vehicles. It's control units. And the lower part is the evolution path of EE architecture. So at the beginning, there are only single function ECU, and each ECU has a simple function and they communicate directly with each other. And with more and more functions added to the vehicle, such as driving assistance system, and lots of ECUs are brought to facilitate complex functions. Nowadays, we are now in domain architecture. So, and the functions are even more consolidated. And normally-wise, the domain architecture has three domain controllers, like a cockpit, the autonomous driving part, and also vehicle control part. Vehicle control part is somehow similar to the control part, the traditional vehicle control part, but the autonomous driving part is totally new. And in this architecture, the communication between the modulars are also changed. So in the traditional car, the ECUs communicate, use CAN bus or LIN or other bus. And this is signal-oriented communications. So there's a sender and a receiver. And the communication is well planned. And in this domain architecture, the communication among the modulars changed a lot. For example, under one domain controller, CAN or other bus protocols are also used, but between domain controller, Ethernet may be used to facilitate high volume data rate. So, for example, nowadays the vehicles have more sensors, and the data controller, domain controller, collected the data, the sensor data, and the data may be used by several other consumers. So the communication bandwidth is also needs to be higher than before. So, and the next step will be even higher degree of consolidation of the functions, like zonal architecture or central architecture. That means the sensors or actuators will have less functions, but the functions will be centralized in the vehicle. So from the evolution path, we can see that actually the EE architecture has been evolved and will be evolved toward an even higher degree of consolidation, always. So, and another trend is that the signal-oriented communication based on CAN or other bus are mainly for control data. But currently, lots of, for example, sensor data or business data are also transferred among the modulars, and the communication functions evolves to combine both signal-oriented and also for stream data. And in the new architectures, to keep architecture flexible for deployment of software components, that is the functions, the industry is considering to include service-oriented architecture. That means we will have a hybrid architecture which include both the traditional signal-oriented architecture and the new service-oriented architecture. So what is service-oriented architecture? So I borrowed the definition from Wikipedia. A service is a discrete unit of functionality that can be accessed remotely and acted upon and updated independently. That means the services could be a black box and they are isolated from each other. So service-oriented architecture is a kind of software design style. So firstly, it's about software design and where services are provided to the other components by application components through a communication protocol or network. On the right side, there's an illustration of service-oriented architecture. So we can see that from the bottom part, the business logic and the data and how they interact with each other are abstracted into services, and the services communicated with each other through interfaces, and the interfaces will be standardized. So there are mainly two parts we should emphasize. One is how to abstract the business logic and the data. And that means how can we abstract the function into services. Another one is how the services interact with each other. That is the interface, how to standardize information exchange interface. So two important points at least. Then I will use AUTOSAR as example to see how SOA, service-oriented architecture, could be implemented in automotive architecture. And firstly, I introduce AUTOSAR first. So AUTOSAR is Automotive Open System Architecture. It is a worldwide development partnership of vehicle manufacturers, suppliers, and the service providers. And currently, AUTOSAR has two platforms: classic platform for vehicle controller and classic and adaptive platform provide high performance computing and communication mechanism. and also offer flexible software configurations, for example, to support software update over the air. And let's take a first look of the architecture. On the left side is the classic AutoSAR platform. So this is a layered software architecture. So we can see that there's hardware abstraction, and then above the hardware abstraction, there's service abstraction, and the runtime environment. This is the interface, and then their application layer. So this is a layered architecture and coupled with hardware. On the right side is adaptive AutoSAR platform. It uses service-oriented architecture. So you can see that it uses POSIX operating system interfaces and provide different APIs on the left side and the services on the right side. And then there are applications on top. So it can run in, for example, Linux. So now it's not coupled with hardware. So this is very different. And for vehicle, actually, classic AutoSAR and adaptive AutoSAR are both existed. They are adaptive platform doesn't replace classic part, but it is used to provide high performance computing and communication mechanism. So then let's look at how adaptive AutoSAR implement service-oriented architecture. So adaptive AutoSAR follows the service-oriented architecture concept. So there are mainly there are some design principles. For example, the first one is dependency inversion principle. That means the high-level building blocks should not depend on lower level, but both should depend on abstractions. Abstractions means some standardized interface. So that means the high-level blocks are decoupling from the lower part, and it also be extended that the software part is also decoupled from the lower hardware part. And the second principle could be interface segregation principle. So that is also defined by SOA definition of concept. So, and the single responsibility principle. That means each function or each modular has a single function, so that we can construct complex services based on the single services, and the single ones can be developed separately and independently. And as we show in the definition of SOA, the methodology includes at least two parts, how to abstract the services and how they communicate with each other, or how they interact with each other. So here, also I show here, the first important part is standardized service or application or machine and their configuration, and then define the interface or communication mechanism between the services. And on the right side, we can see the methodology of how the services are abstracted and deployed in the platform. The left side here is, this is Adapt AutoSAR platform development process. So from the process, we can see that, so firstly, define a service, and the service will then the service doesn't rely on the system. That means when you define services, actually, you doesn't know the system details. So you just abstract a function as a service. And during the software development, and different small services are combined into an application. So, and then deployed to the platform. So the service is bind with the system only until the service instance here is configured. So here there is a very important concept of manifest. So there is execution manifest for the integrated software, and also there is machine manifest for the system. Once the service is deployed into the platform, and the manifest, especially the permission of the application or service, will be kept unchanged. If we'd like to change the permissions or privilege of the application, then we need a new integration process. So then there's the for the info exchange among the modulars. In Adapt to AutoSAR, Arcom realized the mapping from service to network interface. But Adapt to AutoSAR doesn't use existing service management protocols, but it defines communication management by itself. The reason is that there are some special requirements like safety requirements and also some configuration requirement. So in Adapt to AutoSAR, the communication mechanism are mainly some IP, DDS, and the signal-based communication. Signal-based is to co-work with the traditional part. Some IP and DDS is service-based. So the second part is about the information change between the modulars. Is called service-oriented communication. So the service elements include methods, events, and fields. Method provides the possibility to issue a remote procedure call, which are executed on provider side. Event is used very frequently in automotive because there are lots of events generated, and the fields are combination of methods and events. Then let's have a look of how the service-oriented communication works. So the application 1 and 2. For example, 1 is a service provider, 2 is service consumer. So the application, both applications should register at this service registry. And some IP is responsible for the service management, like service registration, service discovery, and service stop, like this. And so this is how Adapt AutoSAR implement the service-oriented architecture. It includes how they abstract the functions into service so that it is possible now we can design the system from top to down, top-down approach. So from the experience of how Adapt AutoSAR implement SOA, we can get some idea about important features of automotive service-oriented architecture. So firstly, decoupling of software and hardware. So in Adapt AutoSAR, it's not banded or coupled with the lower controller. So it's based on POSIX operating system. And the second point is flexible during runtime. So for example, the communication is based on service discovery using some IP or DDS. So it's not like in the traditional vehicle, ECUs are communicated in a fixed communication matrix. So that in the SOA architecture, the communication matrix actually is dynamic. And the third one is function redundancy. It's implied into service-oriented architecture because in this architecture, it's easy to deploy backup services. And when one service goes down and another one can be launched without new hardware. This is very important for safety functions as well. And for SOA, there's a simplified communication from signal-oriented to service-oriented communication. And then the service can be shared across platforms, use some IP or DDS. So for this new architecture, we can see some security challenges. The first one is about the flexibility during runtime, because the flexibility also means dynamic. The communication metrics and also the service bindings are dynamic. So then how to manage the dynamic metrics? How to secure the dynamic metrics? The second one actually is about the software skill. So now software is becoming extremely complex. A modern high-end car may include 100 million lines of codes. And in the near future, it can reach 200 or 300 millions. So this is very complex and also means there are more vulnerabilities, maybe. And then the software OTA update become new attack target. So many softwares in the vehicle and SOA also would like to facilitate this software over-the-air update. And this is now a new attack target. And supply chain become complex. And for example, in SOA architecture, there are lots of applications made from third parties. How to make a trust relationship and how to manage the third-party applications. This is a big challenge. Of course, SOA exposes more and more interfaces to applications, and accordingly, attack interfaces increases dramatically. And last but not least, safety goes first, and the dynamic scenario become even more difficult. In traditional car, the communication or binding metrics are static. And if there is something goes wrong or it has fault, So it's easy to detect and to make reaction. But now in the SOA architecture, it's dynamic. So how to ensure safety goes first. And to handle the security challenges, the standard bodies and also some government government organizations give some responsibilities to OEM. Before that, let's say some text to automotive. So this is from Upstream's report about the last 10 years attack on automotive automotive from 2010 to 2020. So the left side is the impact breakdown. So the most affected part is data privacy breach and then car theft break-ins. On the right side is which part on the vehicle are under attack. So in the last 10 years, actually the mobile applications are always in top 3 targets of the attacks in the last 10 years. And so some attacks, some software in the vehicles are under attack of some virus, which could be 4 or 5 years ago. But we know that automotive software are not updated easily. So there are still lots of work waiting us. And also, if we map those attacks to this WP29 threats and vulnerabilities, we can see that the attacks are mostly about communication channels, data code, potential vulnerabilities of software, and also the backend and update procedures. So this is our attacks. So the attacks will continue, and maybe there are new attacks to the new architecture, especially there are already lots of attacks on the software. So from legal and standard part, let's see how the legal requirements and the standard body requires the industries. So there is a very important legal requirement. It's WP29. It's about proposal for a new United Nations regulation on uniform provision concerning the approval of vehicles with regards to cybersecurity and the cybersecurity management system. So it's about technology and also the management system. And in EU, the regulation will be mandatory for all new vehicle types from next year. And then in 2024, for all new vehicles produced. So in this legal regulation, some mitigations are specified as are clearly mentioned. For example, security controls shall be implemented for storing cryptographic keys. So, and access control technologies and designs shall be applied to protect the system and data code, and also follow principle of least access privilege, and detect malicious and insurance also should be considered. And also lots of other security mechanisms, but crypto related and access control and intrusion detection are clearly required by this legal regulation. Then from the standard part, ISO 21434 now is a very, very important standard for automotive security, especially the automotive engineering lifecycle.
5 minutes.
Okay, almost now. So it defines all, it covers all stages of vehicle lifecycle from design to decommissioning. And it applies to electrical systems, components, and software and external connectivity. It means that it's not only related to how to develop a vehicle, but also how the vehicle connected to external. So, the OEMs and the vendors and I mean the industries have made great efforts to secure the automotive and the connectivities. But due to the new architecture, there are still open security challenges. Until now, there are not so much have been done to handle those challenges. For example, the first one is dynamic service binding during runtime. So the traditional security mechanisms like intrusion detection, access control, secure communication are used, but not specifically for the dynamic service binding part. And also for the software OTA part, the software or firmware update part is now a target of attacks. And there are also lots of standards, but still lots of attacks happened. And then the software privilege management through lifecycle. And this is because there are lots of third-party applications will run on the open platform, and how to set up the trust, and not only trusted software, but also, for example, some sensors attached to the device. So about this trust and privilege management. And service access across heterogeneous platforms. And last, but this is actually always very important for automotive. Ensure safety goes first. And so that's all from my side. And thank you very much.
So, okay.
So maybe I come back to this page.
Yes. So thanks a lot for some insights in automotive security. So if any one has a question, please identify yourself and ask a question before we go for the break. And also, if you want kind of funding, money from Huawei, ask here now. So, okay, any question? So no question? I have someone who definitely has a question. Stefan. Camera is on you. Ask question. Poor Stefan, he has always to give some questions.
Thank you for the talk. I'm actually interested a little bit what Wow, this is very loud. What Ahmad said at the end. So what's connected with funding, but bigger picture, what's your opinion on the role of AI in research that Huawei does? And what do you think, will it grow even bigger? So I know some people told me from time to time that there is a lot of research going on with artificial intelligence, with deep learning, things like that. But what's your opinion? Where are you going with that?
For artificial intelligence for our automotive project or directions are mainly to support autonomous driving. And in other areas, AI is used, for example, to protect privacy or to analyze intrusion detection like this. Actually, internally, we have lots of projects related to artificial intelligence in our team, actually also. But today, I only talk about this architecture evolution and the security challenges. But if you are interested in AI for autonomous driving, we can discuss.
Thank you. So in the favor of time, I think we closed this session because we have a short break, and then we go with the next honorable guest that we invited. So Aifen, thank you very much for your availability and your talk. And I hope that some of the interested people may be able to send you an email, or when they have questions on the chat channel, we will forward it to you. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. And I hope we see each other again, hopefully in times of non-pandemic. I don't know if there will be such a time, but I hope.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.